Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Goatlander Tournament Round 2, the semi-finals you could say, and I am your announcer, Mollusk. Round 1 saw the defeat of the petty warlords, and now we're left with some real wheat. That's a saying, isn't it? Wheat? Chaff? Whatever. Let's get on with it. The first battle we have for you tonight is a real wizard duel, and it's not going to be that Harry Potter stand there and shoot twinkly sparkles at each other shit. We're talking Elminster versus the Crimson King. This shit just got hypothetical.
Baphomet versus Lurkhorn.
Okay, round 2, game 1. Games of this round will be capped at 6 turns. Deployment will be diagonal. Terrain will consist of a building, a hill and a forest, plus D3 extra random terrain pieces. I'm only playing on a 3x3, so there's not the full amount of terrain, otherwise it'd just get in the way of killing. And we'll also be rolling randomly on the secondary objectives. So this table's a bit sparse. We've got a hill, a building, a forest, a river and an impassable. And basically my herdstone piece is just going to be in every game regardless. It just wouldn't be Goatlander without it. The secondary objective was secure target. Lurkhorn won the roll for deployment and chose this edge and put his target down here, forcing Baphomet to put his 24 inches away over here, just out of the river. Though Lurkhorn is the only one who can actually score because he's the only one that's brought a unit with a banner. When we rolled for spells, Lurkhorn got Turn to Smoke, which is the strength lowering spell, which could really give his goats the edge if he gets it off right. And Baphomet got Inner Rage and the Redwood Shaft, and I swapped the Inner Rage for the Beast Within because that spell is just too damn good. But where are all the goats, I hear you ask? Well, my friends, both of the tricksy conniving wizards decided to ambush each other, and all the Wildhorns are waiting in reserve for their master's summons. In play, we have 5 mongrel raiders, and their leader Lurkhorn, who is bravely hiding behind the herdstone, because he couldn't be sure where Baphomet would deploy. And as you probably know by now, he's a level 1 Soothsayer of Shadow with the Potion of Swiftness and the Soothsayer Staff. In Ambush Reserve, he's got 15 Wildhorns with a champion and a Standard Bearer. Across on the other side, we've got Baphomet, who is a level 2 Soothsayer of Beasts or Wildness, or I still haven't got that name, and he's got the Talisman of Shielding. Protecting him is a Raiding Chariot, and in reserve he's got 10 Wildhorns with additional hand weapons and a champion. Oh, and there's a picture of Lurkhorn lurking. Lurkhorn wins the initiative, and his goats try to press the advantage. The mongrels move up a little bit, just into range of Baphomet. They don't want to get too close where the chariot can charge them, and I think they're out of sight thanks to the building's corner. Lurkhorn then runs out from behind the rock to join them. I've just realised he can't do that because he can't march the river, but oh well, we all know he's a dirty cheater anyway. In the magic phase, Lurkhorn tries to turn Baphomet to smoke. It's not really that important, and he'd rather not explode himself over it. So he doesn't put his heart into it, and the more experienced wizard easily dispels. The mongrels then loose their arrows at Baphomet, and despite needing 6s to hit, 2 shots find their target, but neither of them penetrate the Soothsayer's wizened hide. Baphomet turn 1, the chariot moves up so that it can pressure the mongrels. I want to try to force them to run around the building this way and away from the river, but there's a good chance Lurkhorn will see through this. It's quite a big magic phase, something like 10 dice to 6. Baphomet draws out his opponent's dispel dice by 4 dicing the Redwood Spear with quite a solid number, but Lurkhorn succeeds in unravelling the incantation. However, this leaves Baphomet free to safely 3 dice the Beast Within on himself, giving him the edge against any arrows in the next turn. Successfully casting this allows the chariot to jiggle 4 inches, which is a really nice little perk. Lurkhorn turn 2. The Wildhorns fail to materialise, and spitting curses, Lurkhorn splits his goats up. He runs around the tower out of the chariot's charge range, but sadly the door is this size so he can't get in. The mongrels cheat again by marching across the river, and the plan is to use them to bait the chariot into killing itself. Nothing happens in the magic phase, as though, I could have left Lurkhorn here to reduce the strength of the chariot and then move himself away with the shadow step, but if I failed he'd be chariot bait, and I didn't think it was worth the risk. The mongrels fancy their chances against the toughness 4 chariot rather than the toughness 5 shaman, but they can't hit the broadside of a barn door. So we go into Baphomet turn 2. His Wildhorns come on with well-drilled position, and they manoeuvre to try to stop him from getting round their side where they can't see him or, away from them over here. I mean, if he does run over here, Baphomet's got a magic spear with his name on it, Oh, but first the chariot charged the mongrels and made it no problem, and also passed all of its dangerous terrain tests. I think it now has to roll 4 dice and take a wound for each one. But the flotation devices we equipped it with was clearly a good idea. Baphomet also finds that he can move and see his nemesis, and things are not looking good for Lurkhorn. It's another big magic phase, and Baphomet feels confident in his powers to control the flux of magic. He 5 dices the redwood shaft. Lurkhorn 5 dices the dispel, but Baphomet is the superior. The shaft streaks from Baphomet's hand like the spear from a bolt thrower, but Lurkhorn shits a rainbow and only takes 1 wound. Lucky son of a bitch. Over here the chariot mulches the mongrels with impact hits alone, and I don't reform, as otherwise I'd have to take another dangerous terrain test. Lurkhorn turn 3, the Wildhorns arrive to save their master. I can't charge anything because I stupidly put Lurkhorn facing towards the building. With his Soothsayer Staff and a Potion of Speed, I fancy his chances against Baphomet in combat, but it wasn't to be. It was a tricky decision, but I decided the best policy is to turn to face the Wildhorns. I'm out of their line of sight, and I reckon if I charge them, I can beat them and turn back to face Baphomet and the chariot. And I'm not looking forward to that chariot, but taking it one at a time is much more preferable than trying to charge Baphomet, who will probably run away and leave me to get spit roasted by his other 2 units. So I've turned my Wildhorns to face their Wildhorns, and Lurkhorn has sprinted across the gap to join the unit. Nice and safe from spears. The magic's phase is pretty weak, but that's just what Lurkhorn needs to slip a spell past Baphomet. The enemy Wildhorns turn to smoke and lose 1 point of strength. Could have been better, but at least they are wounding me on 6s now, so long as I can stop the beast within next turn. We go to Baphomet turn 3. The chariot passes all of its dangerous terrain again and moves out back to get into the fray. Baphomet gets another fairly big magic phase. I think it's 9 to 6. He risks 4 dicing the redwood shaft. Lurkhorn only puts up token resistance. It goes off and skewers 2 goats. The important spell comes next. Beast Within goes off on Baphomet's Wildhorns, and there's no power left to dispel the turn to smoke thing, so it's just going to have to do. We go into Lurkhorn turn 4, and the charge is declared. The magic flux betrays Lurkhorn, and there's a pathetic amount of power going around, and I can't risk trying to recast the smoke spell and failing, so we just go into combat. The 2 champions get into a challenge and batter each other ineffectively, and despite being at a disadvantage, Lurkhorn's goats match Baphomet's goat for goat, bringing down 3 on each side. Wielding his staff like a great weapon, Lurkhorn brings down 1 more, and charge, rank, banner, extra kill swings the combat heavily in Lurkhorn's favour. Not surprisingly, the battered Wildhorns run for it. It's pretty damn close to the board edge, so Lurkhorn restrains pursuit and reforms, but the fleeing Wildhorns literally are on the edge of the precipice and don't go off the table. We go to Baphomet turn 4. This could be the decider. The chariot charges home. The Wildhorns rally and Baphomet whisks round to the side. In the magic phase, Baphomet once more overpowers Lurkhorn with an effortless 5 dice cast of the Beast Within on the chariot, and this is not going to be pretty. 6 brutal impact hits bring down 5 gore. The chariot takes a wound in retribution, and the Longhorn charioteer claims another. Unsurprisingly, Lurkhorn's lot can't take that kind of punishment and flee, bouncing off the table with the chariot in hot pursuit. And Baphomet grins his rictus grin because he knows he's through to the final, and whoever faces him is going to have a rough time of it, as the chariot Path of Wilderness synergy seems to be pretty unstoppable at this low points level. Well done, Baphomet, but now, a match I've certainly been waiting for. I don't know about you. Let's go to round 2, game 2.
Hartache versus Polkan.
Let's do this. Minotaurs versus Centaurs. The Minotaurs are going to crush whatever they get their greedy fists on. 4 strength 5 attacks at initiative 3 apiece. I reckon they'll evaporate the Centaurs even if they get charged. But mind you, the Centaurs aren't going to be hanging around. Polkan's made sure everyone's stone cold sober for this match, as we're going to need every ounce of manoeuvrability, if you can weigh manoeuvrability, to pull this one off. And the Centaur aren't wimps in combat. That's 11 strength 6 attacks on the charge. Everyone's re-rolling, thanks to their primal urge. But I really don't want to find out what the Minotaurs, and especially Hartache, can do in combat unless I really have to. Terrain, we have a forest, a hill, a building, a field, and a ruin. and the good old impassable herdstone. The secondary objective is to secure the middle, whatever it's called, something which neither side is equipped for, as the Minotaurs don't have a banner and the Centaur will have free reform. But it's the thought that counts, I guess. Minotaurs won the deployment and chose the nice cosy field to hide in, but the Centaurs got the first turn, or rather they won the roll and gave it to the Minotaurs. And things are a bit tense because it's not impossible that someone could make a charge. The Minotaurs break the ice by failing their frenzy check and charge the Centaurs who are closest. It's a long charge, the Centaur take a deep breath and stand and shoot. The Minotaurs fail, and one of them takes a javelin to the groin for his troubles. Hartache had better control over himself and moves up to cover. Though the Centaur is so fast, it's very hard to cover all the angles. Polkan turn 1, the Centaurs easily slip through the gaps and bag their first Minotaur with combined shooting. Hartache turn 2, the Minotaurs are in a bit of a sticky situation, being completely outmaneuvered. I'm not super keen on getting double charged, so I move the Minotaurs into the ruins, wheeling around as much as I can. I pass all the dangerous terrain, thankfully, and it's now 2 dice for each monstrous infantry model in the new rules. And my thinking at this point is, if the Centaur want to come and have a go in the combat, they'll have to take their same dangerous terrain, and I still like my odds of beating them. Or they can keep up their ranged dickery, and the only really safe place for them to do it is over here in this corner, where I hope I can trap them. Polkan turn 2, and that's what the Centaurs do. We continue shooting, but now the Minotaurs are in the ruins, it's harder to hit them. But Polkan's Ballistic Skill 4 manages to get us another wound on the beasts, and I forgot that the Centaur Champion has Ballistic Skill 4 all game. Also, Battle Scribe has the Centaur Champion as at Initiative 2, which I'm pretty sure is wrong. Just FYI. Hartache turn 3, the Minotaurs wheel like crazy and get out of the ruins, although this time one of them stubs his toe and takes a wound. And I'm realising now that even though Hartache is there, peering into the Centaur's ears, I'm just not going to catch these buggers. So I reckon my best bet is to sit in the field, which is dangerous for Centaurs and will give my moo cows cover, and basically just hope to try to keep the points for my Minotaur unit alive until the end of the game, whereupon we'll go into sudden death, which will consist of a challenge between the two heroes, and Hartache likes his odds. Polkan turn 3, and Polkan really doesn't want to get into a challenge with Hartache, so the race is on to finish off this unit. And we do a decent job. 2 wounds, brings down 1 Minotaur and wounds the final one. And things continue to go well for the Centaurs, although it was very difficult to get completely out of Hartache's charge arc. So I'm a little bit concerned that he might pull a fast one. Hartache turn 4, he goes for it, and the Centaur aren't about to tempt fate and elect to flee, which was probably the right thing to do because the Minotaur chieftain gave it a decent effort. But now I realise, if I fail this, I'm going to bounce through this terrain and go off the board. And that will be the game, because there's no way Polkan's going to be able to kill both these guys by himself. So on tenterhooks we go into Polkan turn 4. We're out of Inspiring Presence, but we've got the Musician to get us a Leadership 8. And they nail it, turning back to the fray. But that has lost us a turn of shooting as we're now out of range, because despite the free reform, we're not quite fast cavalry, and it's up to Polkan to continue the work on the Minotaur. He moves up to close range, but luck isn't on his side, and the Minotaur perseveres. Hartache turn 5. Come on, Hartache! The Minotaur chieftain fails his frenzy, and you would too if you had Centaur skipping around your garden. The Centaur have to stand and shoot, and Hartache falls short by a hair's breadth. Ho, tense! Polkan turn 5, and Polkan charges the remaining Minotaur. In hindsight, this was probably a bit premature, but I was worried I might whiff shooting and then be left with just turn 6 to sort things out, and the Minotaur could have, I don't know, got away or joined Heartbleed, or not Heartbleed, Hartache. So Polkan went for it, the Minotaur held, and flipping tripped over in the field or something and took a dangerous drain wound. Both of us passed the primal urge, and if Polkan doesn't put the beast down hard, things seem unlikely to go well for the Centaur chieftain. Luckily, Polkan hasn't got this far by being a slouch in combat, and 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, re-rolling, and then wounding on 3s, butchers the mad cow. And Polkan doesn't dare reform in case he falls down a pothole. Hartache turn 6, and there's not really much the Minotaur chieftain can do, but turn around and face his antagonisers and yell hurtful things about their mothers, which in Polkan turn 6 is more than Centaurs can bear. And this, ladies and gentlemen, was not a sensible manoeuvre. If I lose this unit, Hartache is 5 points more expensive than Polkan, which means despite everything, Hartache would win the game. I've had a fairly good idea all game what Hartache could potentially do to my Centaur, but you know that part of you that just wants to push the button to see what would happen. Well, I failed my leadership check on that one. So we're going to see if Strength 6 on the charge can't make this game a perfect 250-0. Oh shit, no it can't! Hartache challenges and the champion declines because I need someone to survive to get some attacks off. But unfortunately the mighty chieftain takes them to town and back again. The only guy left is the champion, who can't attack because he declined a challenge. And the centaur lose the combat by 3, which is quite hefty for a beastman. Despite how inspiring Polkan is, the champion breaks, and the game comes down to this pursuit, and Hartache can't quite catch the skipping centaur. Half points for the unit isn't enough, and Polkan has the game. And if you listen closely, I'm sure you can hear Hartache's bellow of frustration. No, it's just in my head then. So there you have it, Polkan through to the final. What a game! It started out looking quite comfortable for Polkan, but ended with a real nail-biter of a finish. And now he has his pupilless eyes fixed on the prize. Stay tuned for the exciting finale of the Goatlander tournament, Baphomet versus Polkan, and you know what they say, there can be only one. Take care.